All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to an HESD workshop. Today, we're going to focus on Desmos with Rebecca Pariso. Rebecca, thank you so much for agreeing to share your expertise on Desmos with us.
Yeah, I'm excited. I must say that Desmos is definitely my favorite go-to applications in the classroom. I hope that by the end of this, you'll see the value of it too. So I wanted to get started just really quick with this little meme that I found the other day and thought, how perfect for us. This must be what we feel like, right? Or our parents feel like. So my goal, though, is to present Desmos in a way that won't be so overwhelming like this picture here is. So I had to share that. That was pretty funny. All right, so today's plan for Desmos. So we're going to talk about 4 important things. One would be the benefits of using Desmos. We're going to talk about the 3 different Desmos platforms that it's common to confuse those together. So I want to go over the differences between the 3. I'm going to share some example lessons and links to some resources that I've found. And then we're going to talk about how to implement a lesson. So I know it's going to be a lot of information, and it's hard when you first are learning a new platform to kind of take everything in. But I wanted to let you know that everything I have is hyperlinked in my presentation, and this will be shared with you. So at any point, if you want to go back and rewatch what I did, or if you want to find the exact activity that I used, it's all linked within the lesson. So Desmos is awesome. It's amazing. I'm not even getting paid to say that. I just am. Basically, Desmos has an unbelievable amount of ready-made, customizable lessons. So these lessons are ready to go. All you have to do is launch it for your students. Not only that, Google has a tremendous amount of resources as well. I'm going to show you how to find the resources within the Desmos platform, and then also I'll show you how you can Google a lesson too. So with the lessons, I just wanted to briefly point out that when you find lessons within the Desmos site, you know they're vetted, so they know that the lesson is good. But if you are going to Google a lesson and find a Desmos lesson to use, just make sure to run through it, because those ones aren't necessarily approved through Desmos. Desmos is awesome because it helps you meet the needs of all students. So especially with distance learning here, we have students that need a very low floor, but then we also have those students that need a high ceiling. So Desmos really lets you differentiate your instruction, and it kind of provides equity within the classroom, especially for our special education students and English learners. It also makes learning dynamic and fun. I'm going to show you some activities, and the really cool part about it is that the students are actually doing something. And that dynamic part of the lesson is so important. Students, especially when they're in math, students need to experience it. So they need to know, if I put in this number, how does it change? How does it affect the problem? What's going to happen? And that's what Desmos allows them to do, is just conceptually see what's going on as math problems change. It also provides meaningful real-time data for us. I can see anything that my students have typed on their slides. I can monitor student progress. I can go back and see lessons that I ran 2 or 3 years ago. So it saves everything for you. And the best part is that it's free. So Desmos has always said that they're going to keep it as a free resource for teachers. The really cool part, though, is they're starting a Desmos curriculum, which seemed pretty interesting to me, but they're just kind of launching it this year. And that I don't think is a free program to use, but I know that the Desmos platform will always be free. So the 3 Desmos platforms, we have teacher.desmos.com, which is basically where you're going to probably spend most of your time. That's where we're going to spend a lot of our time today. But just the difference, okay, when people see or hear Desmos, they think of just like a standard calculator. They think of it just as a calculator to use with your students. And so what's the value in that? You know, my students can just Google a calculator. Why do I need to use Desmos? Now, Desmos.com, yes, is a Desmos calculator, and it's an important one because that's the one that's on CAST. So we do want to use this. We want to have our students practice using the calculator and include that within our lessons. But if I were to be honest with you, I don't really use this one as much as I would the teacher.desmos.com. So student.desmos.com is where your students will go when you launch a lesson. So once you create once you have a lesson and you give the students a class code, the students will go to student.desmos.com, and that's when they'll be able to access the lesson. Now, the really cool part, if you have students log in with Google, it will save their progress within the same lesson. So if students just write their name, and if they get kicked out or if they have to go back another day, it's not going to save any of their work. But if they log in with Google, it will save their progress, and they can go back and make edits or do whatever they need to do there. So, yes.
Rebecca, question. I know Desmos is usually used with more upper grade and up. Is it possible for an elementary teacher or primary teacher to use it in any capacity?
Absolutely.
Can it be adapted?
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you said that, because that was where I was going next. So it's the perfect.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
No, it's perfect. It's the perfect timing. So what I've done here is I created a shared folder for all of us with tasks already made. So let me go ahead and share one of them with you. So I cannot take credit for these particular lessons. This was put together by an elementary district, but if you look down here, you can just select which grade level you want. So if you wanted to do grade 4, you can click on grade 4, and they have all of these lessons ready to go with the standards and everything. So really, if you wanted to implement Desmos into your classroom, even at an elementary level, I mean, it would not be difficult because there are so many resources already made for you. It's not like you have to reinvent the wheel. So we're actually going to go over some of these lessons just so you can see how dynamic it is and how it can make learning more conceptual and actually just more fun in the classroom. And then this one too, this is another one that was for elementary, but you'll see these are all, so this is like all for a second. There's so many, and polygraphs are my favorite. I'll have to talk about that later. You can see that there's a ton. I have highlighted a couple of the lessons per grade level, so I want to just kind of show you a little bit about what the students will do with Desmos lessons. A big standard, students need to be able to plot an ordered pair. And we usually do this with just paper and pencil task, and or on a whiteboard, we can go and monitor progress. Well, the really cool part about the Desmos learning with this is that it gives them a purpose. They want to put in a value for X and Y so that they can hit the target in the red in the middle. And the really cool part about it is that they can see, like, a common mistake is if you wanted to go to this point here, I'll just say 3, 2. The most common mistake is that students would do the opposite, 2, 3, and then it would be over here. And then right away they could see, wait, that's not what I meant. That's not what I wanted to see. And they can change their answer. So that's what makes it more dynamic. So as a teacher, this is what I see. So when you have your account, if you have an activity, this is kind of what you'll see. You can see I've ran this lesson quite a bit. And actually, I did it recently for distance learning, and you can see how many students I have that completed it. But if you click on this view dashboard here, I have, okay, here we go. So these are all my students, and I can very quickly see who completed which slides, who may have gotten one wrong, who skipped it. So the check mark means they got it right. The circle means they left it blank. the X means that it's wrong. So very quickly, I can see how my class is doing. And also, if this was real time within the classroom, it would, if you hover over this part right here on the side, it will tell you exactly how many students are on that slide. And you can click on each student's slide separately and look at their detailed work. So for example, if I wanted to look at this one here, if I wanted to look at that slide, this is my, my teacher view here. So these are all my students. This is the ordered pair they put in. And this right here shows a picture of where they hit on the bullseye. So you can see, if I just really quickly went through, you know, this person's not quite there. I should check in on that student. Same thing with this student here. So what we could do is we could click on their screen individually, and I can kind of see exactly what they did. Gives a lot of information there. So practice is a really, really fun one. Then I saw this one that seemed pretty cool for telling time. I've actually never ran this lesson before because it's for the elementary level. But if you go to the student preview here, so set the clock so that it shows 6:45. So the students will have to move this around. So the really cool part about this is that you are going to see every student's work. So they have to actually set the time. So maybe they thought it was that. And then for this one here, it will show them the correct answer as they go. So this whole lesson right here is just based on telling time. So I thought that was interesting. And then let's see.
Rebecca?
Yes.
When you look at the student work, can you leave notes, or how do you give feedback to the students? Is there a way to do that?
You would have to do it individually. That's one thing that I think they're trying to work on, is creating a better way to give comments and stuff on lessons, but really you'd have to go individually into each one and comment on them.
And if you were using Google Classroom and linking it that way, you could, through Google Classroom, use the comment feature there. And then do teachers set up, what's the best way for teachers to set up their accounts? Like through Google, or?
It's just whatever you prefer. You could set it up through the school email or through your regular email.
Okay.
This one right here is another fun one for older grades, land the plane. In this situation, a teacher might just give students a textbook and have them just graph a line, and there's nothing dynamic about that. So you can't really monitor student progress on paper as well, but here's the really cool part. The lessons like this, so here I've actually created a code because I'm going to be using that for one of my weeks in distance learning. But let's just say I wanted to look at this one from last year. This is what the student will see. And basically what they have to do is try and get this airplane to land on the runway. So let's say that we had this one here. So you can see here's the airplane, which is basically your y-intercept or initial value within linear equations. And then here's the runway. You can see that if I did it right now, that plane is not going to land on the runway. It's gonna completely miss it. So the directions here is change one of those numbers. So just really quickly, I'm gonna change that. And now we can see, oh, that plane's gonna land. So you can see, and then it actually shows the students that you landed the plane safely. Whereas if I change the number here and I press land the plane, it's completely off the runway. So this conceptually shows how the slope and the y-intercept can change. And what's going to happen initially is a lot of your students are going to want to change, let's say, the 6 value, thinking that that's going to move the plane up or down within the coordinate plane. But they'll very quickly realize, whoa, that's not the number I need to change. I need to change this one over here. Those are concepts we can't really teach students on paper all at the same time if we had all of our students working on the same one. So this is a really, really cool lesson. The students get so engaged. I remember one time, I think it was last year when I did this activity in class, like they did not want to stop. I just wanted to do it for a quick, just like 5-minute activity. They're like, no, no, no. So it's like, I mean, I'm not gonna At that point, it's like you have to keep going. You have to let them do it if they're wanting to learn, if they're wanting to do more. So it's a really good way to teach that. Let me, whoops, okay. Okay, this one here, adding whole numbers. So like I said before, Desmos is good for your low floor, high ceiling. This task right here I thought was super good for elementary school. And also if you're in an upper grade, they have one similar to this that has integers. So I actually have that bookmarked, I'll show you that in a little bit. But if I see this lesson and I want to just kind of say like, hey, what's this about? I can click student preview. So press deal to receive your cards. So if I press deal, let me close this out. All right, and then it says drag the cards from your hand to the red and blue areas, and the goal is to create a group of cards with the same sum using as many cards as possible. Here's your low floor, because a student can put 2 and 1 and 3. So here we know that 2 plus 1 is the same as 3. But there's more answers, obviously. And we didn't use all the cards. So our score isn't going to be as high as we want it to be. So then students can see like, oh, wait a minute, I can change this. What if I made this to be like this? And then press submit. And then the robot's looking at the nice work, your score is 4. So it's very interactive. It's almost playing a video game. So as the game goes on, you get more and more cards. So it gets harder and harder to use all of the cards to get that high score, but it still has that low floor. Your lowest learner could still drag just the 4 and the 1 and then add the 5. But now your learner that's maybe needs a little bit more of a challenge, they are going to be playing around with this. Wait a minute, how can I make it so all of the numbers are used? So this is a really good one, I think. I've done the one with integers, and it's really neat. Because it has negative and positive numbers, so it just makes it a little bit more challenging. So this is a really cool activity. So I know in the beginning here, I just wanted to kind of show you about some of the different lessons that Desmos offers, just highlight a couple. There are so many lessons. I could spend hours and hours and hours showing you amazing lessons on Desmos, but obviously we need to get to, okay, wait, I have this lesson, it's great and all, but now what? What do I do with this? So how do I implement a lesson? Now this is, there's not one right way to do it. There are several ways you can launch your Desmos lesson and get that going for the students. If I was in the classroom, I would project it as if I'm going to do it now with you. But at this point, with our distance learning, it can be a little bit challenging. Like, where do you put the directions, or where do you put the class code? So here's an example assignment that I've set up. This is our work for this week, and basically, whoops, sorry. The students get to choose whichever ones they want to do. And if they click on it, it's all linked. So here, if you click on it, let's say you wanted to do this Desmos activity, it will take them straight to joining in. So they don't need to have a class code or anything like that. I've already started this one, that's why it has my name. But otherwise it would take you to sign right in with Google. Same with this one here, Des Farm, this one is fun. So because we can easily link a Desmos lesson within a HyperDoc, it just makes them more interested in their learning. So you can see here, this is a really cool one on fractions, decimals, and percents. It's kind of newer, so I haven't been able to explore it quite as much, but I know that my students absolutely love it. So working with part to whole ratios, things like that. So with distance learning, I just basically set up a Google Doc. I have a table, and I just put links to the lesson. I'm going to show you how to get that link in the upcoming slide. So this is one way to do it, is just to create a HyperDoc. Another way you can do it is however you send out your information to your students, you can give them the class code and tell them to go to student.desmos.com. So for example, I am going to actually launch a lesson with you guys so you can see what, as a teacher, what I see in real time. And so you can kind of understand as a student what it would be like. So obviously the first step here is you have to find a lesson. So I found one here, the Desmos challenge. And then when you find your lesson, there's this green button on all of them that says create a class code. That's what you'll want to press. You want to press create a class code. When you do that, this is what's going to pop up. You'll see this part here says view dashboard, and then this will pop up right over here. This link right here is what I would copy and paste in for this. I would just highlight the word, put in, and then just paste in the link that I wanted to use. And then the students would automatically go to that lesson. But for today's sake, I'm going to do it the other way too and show you how you can go do the lessons through just going student.desmos.com. So if you guys want to do me a favor, if you can type in student.desmos.com and then type in this class code, and that way I can kind of show you guys the teacher view and you can kind of experience Desmos.
Could they use their phone or?
If you go through the lessons, it will tell you, like this one here will work on a laptop.
Oh, okay.
Caution for
mobile. Rebecca, do teachers have to create a class code for every different Desmos lesson?
So the class code is basically, you do need to launch a class code. That's what kind of gets the lesson started. And that way you have just your new students, because like I was saying, it will save all your data. So if you don't do a new class code, you'll have data from students from prior years within that same lesson. And really you want to make sure that you're just looking at the data from your current students. So if I went over yours, are we good now if I click on this? So over here, this is my Desmos activity. This is my Desmos page. So if I go here, this right here is you can see it's my account. Desmos Labs is really neat, but it's probably something I'd have to talk about another time. They have feature collections for you. This is where I found a lot of the resources that I posted within the folder in our Google Drive. But if you look over here, there's the collections that I've made, and I've added all of these collections that I've been working on to the Desmos TST folder. So you'll have access to all of my collections. And then if you go here, custom, Desmos also lets you make your own lessons, which are really neat. You would click new activity, but like I said, that's gonna wanna be something that we focus on another time. So if I look at the history, this will show me all of the ones that I've launched. So you can see these are all the different class codes that I've been doing. I'm going to go to the Desmos challenge because this is the one that you guys are doing right now. So I'm going to go as a teacher into this so you can kind of see what I see. So here is the dashboard again. So like I said, you could just say, type in student.desmos.com and then type in this code. So that's one way you can get your students to be on the Desmos lesson. But if you look here, there's a lot of really cool information. And I know that it's a little bit harder when we're doing distance learning, but you can keep this in mind too as you are working through your lessons next year. If you look at this here, you can see exactly how students are doing. And what's really funny too is I'll say, like, you know, so-and-so, you're still on slide 1, you need to advance. And they always get surprised, like, whoa, how did you know where I was? So it's really cool. And then you can see your other learner here, where they've gotten pretty far. Maybe I need to launch a different class code and give them a lesson that's a little bit more challenging. And you can click on slides individually. If I wanted to see one, Joy, I hope you don't mind. So you can see her work and what she did there. It also provides collaboration. A lot of the questions, type in a response and then press submit. And this also helps with your low floor because once the students press submit, they can see other people's responses, which, you know, some teachers are like, well, I don't want, that's just going to give away the answer. They can go back and change it. But realistically, when you're thinking about it, don't you want them to learn the lesson? So if they had to try it, get it wrong and kind of see like, oh no, wait, it was this, well, you know, how is it this? And then go back and change their answer. That's actually a really good thing. When you're creating your lesson or if you're editing a lesson, you can select a button that will not let them see other people's answers. And that's something I can show you in just a minute here, but I just wanted to show you how you can see all the progress with your students here. And the overlay is when I wouldn't suggest overlay on this activity, but that's when they put all the answers on top of each other. That's helpful when you have graphing. Putting the overlay, and it's a linear equation, you should only see one line on the overlay. So the overlay will put all the answers on the same graph. So if you just see a big giant mess, you know that you're having a lot of different answers, and it's probably not what you'd want to see when you're running your lesson. So I know that we wouldn't do this for distance learning, but just to point out here, you can, if I wanted to project my screen and you didn't want to show the students' names, you can always press this button here, and it will just, so that, you know, the students don't feel embarrassed or whatever. And I still will have the correct names, but the students are going to see these made up names here. And I could also put on pacing. Now I'm going to restrict you all. So now you're probably all restricted to slide 2. So if I wanted to move you along, I could change it and have you get to slide 3 there. So this is one way you can just monitor progress. I don't do this very often just because a good Desmos lesson, like I was saying, has that low floor, high ceiling. So you wouldn't want to stall the learning. You'd want people to progress at their own pace. And oftentimes within my classroom, when I'm running a Desmos, I don't have students that finish all of the slides, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some of the students, your lower students, are going to probably move a little bit slower, and it's going to take them a little bit longer. But if you think about the activities that we're doing, especially with this one here, you know, we're talking about open-ended questions where there's, you know, there's more than one answer, and they're really having to think about it. So it's okay is what I'm basically trying to say if you don't have your students get through all the slides at the same time. Now with our distance learning, it'll be a little bit different. But let's say that you guys didn't like that feature where you can see students' responses. You can easily get rid of that. And here's what you would do. So this is my lesson. This is my dashboard if I wanted to go back and look at your guys' work. But what I can also do is click on these 3 buttons here. And if I copy and edit, this will automatically go to your customs tab over here. I'll show you. I'll show you when we're done. But if you didn't want to see if you didn't want the students to see other people's responses, you can just right here, you can ask student to explain their answer. And actually I do want them. So I'm gonna check it there. So you can basically change the settings however you want. And then once you press publish, then if you go to custom, here's the one that I just did. And so this is the one, okay, this is the one that has the explain your answers and see student answers as well. So this one here, if I notice the other class code is gone. So if I create a new class code, there's a couple ways I can do it. I can just say, if I was in the classroom, I could just project this. I just have this projected on my TV. If we're doing long distance learning, you can just give students instructions, go to student.desmos.com, type in this. So, or like I said before, if you wanted to just have it as a link, you can just copy this one here and you can just post it to, maybe it's this word here. So if I put that in, now all my student has to do is click on that and it will take them right to their decimal challenge and they don't have to enter in any code or anything. So
So I think I want to make sure, so teachers do not have to add students individually because the code takes the place of them having to add each student into the Desmos.
exactly. Yeah, you don't need to add students or do anything like that. It's actually, I know it seems a little overwhelming at first, but really, if you just, even if you just use these two things, tell your students go student.desmos.com, and then there's your code. It's very easy for them to input it and get started on the assignment.
So Rebecca, if someone was using Seesaw, they could put the directions into their Seesaw platform to connect to Desmos or Google Classroom, or they could use the HyperDoc like you were using.
Yeah, exactly. So if you were going to Classroom, okay, so let's say you want to assign, I'm going to assign it to my 1A class. So if I were to create an assignment here, create this one, and you can choose what you want to do. I create an assignment, and I could just do Desmos decimal challenge. And then I'm going to add a link. And that's that link that I copied and pasted from the student dashboard. So if you add your link, and if I pressed assign, so now when my students go into Google Classroom, all they'd have to do is click on that activity and it would take them right to our activity for the day. So then they just put their name, and now I'm part of the lesson too. And then the students, all they'd have to do is just answer the questions there. But it's actually really cool because if you are doing the hyperlink with options, it's really neat because students can choose something that they're interested in and something that they want to do. So I've given them challenges. So there's some Desmos activities that are a little bit harder. Actually, these ones here, this is for my 7th grade class, but these here are 8th grade standards. But I do have some students that will do every single lesson here and they'll want to do more. So I want to give them something, something to challenge them a bit. So do I have any questions so far? I can't really see.
I've been asking them as they've been popping up. So
Okay.
we're caught up with questions.
We're caught up with questions. Perfect. All right. So this right here is the link to our shared folder. So if I'll display that up again, but if you click on it, we have my presentation, and everything in the presentation that I went over today is hyperlinked there. So if you wanted to make a copy of this and just change the Desmo links for yourself, you're more than welcome to use that. But if you look in our activity, these are the 2 collections I showed you earlier on that have a ton of elementary standards. So really what you'd have to do is just open these up in the folder and just kind of play around. And I bet if you were to take some time to look at it, you'd find yourself just getting lost within these activities and pressing the student view so you can see what's going on. And some of them are really, really fun. So grade 5. So if I went to grade 5, which one doesn't belong? So the really cool part about Desmos is that it does tie in a lot of open up activities, what doesn't belong. Also estimation 180. Within Desmos, that I have my students do estimation 180 slides, and it's really cool. It just makes it super interactive. There's a lot of really, really good resources. So you just have to play around there. But this other one, Desmos collections, I just gave you the link to all of my collections. So you're more than welcome to use these if you want. If you click on one of them, so let's say you are interested in middle school geometry. If you click on it, now I already have an account and it's already added to my screen. So it's gonna look a little bit different right now, but if this was your first time and you didn't have this collection and you wanted to add the collection, then you would press the button here. So if I pressed this right here, it would let me start a new collection, or I can add it to an existing one. So laser challenge has to do with angles. So I'm just gonna add that to my angles collection. So that plus sign there is a really valuable tool because it's like a bookmark it. It's gonna help you save it for later. Sometimes we find a lesson and then it's like, wait, how do I get back to it? So if you're pressing the plus sign, that means that you're adding it to your collection. And your collection is over here. This is what I always go to. This is pretty much where I start. So let's say I'm going to make my assignment for next week. I'm gonna look in, it's really cool. They've added these collections already for long distance learning, and there's some really, really good activities. They even have it for elementary grades, and that's where I did get some of them. But another really fun one was polygraph. So I'm gonna try this with you guys. We have a couple of minutes, but it's really the polygraphs are amazing. So try this. If you can go to student.desmos.com. All right, so student.desmos.com and then enter in this class code. The really cool part about polygraph is that it helps build academic vocabulary. So this is like the game Guess Who, where you have to try and figure out, based on clues, which person the other person has up. So you might ask, do you have brown hair? Are you wearing glasses? Well, same thing with here. This one here is a polygraph on clocks. So they would have to ask questions about the clocks to try and figure out which clock the other student selected. And in order to do that, you have to use the right vocabulary words. So what I would do prior to an activity on polygraphs is, as a class, we would have a class discussion and we would decide what are the important vocabulary words. So we list all of those words on the whiteboard. And then we would just, and when we came back together and we're ready to do our lesson, we would say, okay, make sure that anyone who's asking a question, you have to have at least one of these words within your lesson. So it looks like we have people already in. Some are waiting for a partner. So with polygraph, I would have the vocabulary words off to the side, and basically it pairs them automatically. So that's not something that I'm doing in a teacher setting. I'm actually not doing anything at all. If I close this out, you can see the students, and you see some of them are practicing and some of them are playing. So you can see here, Joy is the picker and Valerie's the lesson. So then it will make a list of all of the questions that they're asking, so I can monitor it.
Do you find out who you're playing with?
I think it does tell you the name of who you're playing.
Let's see.
But if you put in a polygraph, especially for, this RTI, our students do not want to do extra math work for RTI. That's just, they just had lunch and now they come in and I want them to do more math. It's like they don't want to. But if I put up a polygraph and I put up the vocabulary words, they will play polygraph. It'll be hard to get them to stop. That's the really cool part about Desmos, is there's so many activities where you don't have to worry about, whether or not students are going to be engaged. They'll be engaged because they're interested in the activity and they want to do it. It's like playing a video game almost. And what a cool way for us to look at this. So if you look at right here, Veronica's comment here, is your hour an even number? That's pretty cool. So that could be one of the vocabulary words that you have up on the board. So that's one thing I do highlight when we go over polygraph activities. I'm not sure if you guys want to keep playing or if you want me to go back. But if you see the polygraph activities, they're really, really fun. As far as running polygraphs within distance learning, I don't know. I haven't tried it with distance learning. So I would just try that one with caution if you wanted to, because the thing is that, like right here, it shows inactive if they're no longer in there. So I'm not sure if it'd be one of those things where they'd have to come back later and ask a new question, and then, because it does save your progress if you sign in with Google. So it may work fine, but I'm not really sure for the distance learning how this would work. But super fun. I love all the polygraphs. So anyway, are there any questions? I feel like I just went over a ton of information.
Rebecca, once you give the students the code to polygraph, can the teacher end the game and monitor the game if they think, I mean, is that possible for the teacher to end a game?
Okay, so if we go back to the overview here, you can see that that one isn't right. So if we wanted, we could always pause. You could pause the class if you wanted to. I think that will make it so that they can't answer anymore. And then, I mean, you can always go back to your homepage there. Loading, here we go. Okay, so this is the code that I just gave you guys. I had 9 students. You can view the dashboard or you can archive it right here. So if you wanted to end it, you could, this would probably be the best way to do it with those 3 dots there.
Somebody, Joy commented that she really loves this polygraph piece because the use of the math vocabulary is really awesome, and as the person eliminated the options.
Yes, and a strategy that I use with this, it's super important. With polygraphs, if you're ever going to run a polygraph, you know, with long distance it would be hard, but I would want to caution you about it once again, because in the classroom with polygraphs, it's much better. Like I said, we create a list of vocabulary words up on the board, but you're going to notice that the students are going to have a really hard time coming up with what questions to ask, even though those vocabulary words on the board. So when we are, especially if it's like a newer unit, if we're just starting with the unit and I'm doing a polygraph, what I personally would do as a teacher, we would brainstorm the vocabulary words up on the whiteboard, but then I would group students into like groups of 2. So then it would be like a group of 2 playing another group of 2. So then with their partner, they can collaborate, they can talk about how to phrase a question, because it is the polygraphs coming up with the questions for them, it is hard. They will struggle with it. And at least that will give them someone to bounce ideas off of instead of trying to figure it out on your own. Because I mean, it could be embarrassing if you guess it wrong or whatever. You don't want to, that's not the point of the activity.
Can a teacher create their own polygraph? Can they create their own? That's
the really cool part about Desmos. So Desmos, you can create your own activities. Like I said before, this is something that you guys are interested in, maybe we can have another TST, but basically if you wanted to create your own, you would go to custom and then you would create a new activity here. Although if you're just started with your account, you may want to just do this now. I will, if you're on your screen, I'll wait a minute just so that you guys can catch up with me, but this is going to be super important. When you first set up your account, you'll want to click on that bottom arrow and go to Desmos Labs. Make sure that you have all of those boxes checked. So, right here, look at this, they just added it. Someone just asked that question. Give written feedback to students from the teacher dashboard. That's perfect.
Wow.
Yeah, they just added that. Okay, so I checked that box. Here, the computational layer, when you're creating your own Desmos, you can tell them what the right answer will be. Marble slides is super fun. I'd have to show you guys that later. But you'll want to make sure that all of these are checked. So then if you go to custom, you can create a new polygraph right here. So with the polygraph, you can title it anything you want. Start building. And then here you can insert whatever you want it to be on. I mean, and you can add images in there. So building, so here, I don't know. I don't know what you'd want to create it on, but you can just add in pictures. You can add in an expression as just like an equation, 4x plus 2. So maybe you want to add that in. Click on another one. You want to have an equation. Y equals 4x plus 2. So now you have different varieties of it. So yes, you can create your own. And then if you wanted to, go back to the custom. When I talk about Desmos with other people too, it's not even, I mean, it can be used for other classes, not even just math. So if you think about it and you want to add an activity, you want to create your own, if I just create new activity, add a title, and these are all my options of what I can add in. So I love this sketch tool. So students will be able to use their finger on the screen if it's an iPad, or they can use the mouse and they can literally show their work. They can draw a picture, whatever it might be. You can add in media links. Maybe you want them to watch a video, or you want to show them a picture. So maybe you want to just ask a question. So you would put in student input and a note, and now I can type my question over here, and the students, when they actually do the lesson, they would type their answer here, and then you can choose if you want them to see their classmates' responses or not. But as far as creating your own Desmos lessons, I'm really big on that low floor, high ceiling aspect of Desmos, because if you take a look at it, I'll show you how I do that within my classroom. So one activity that I made, this one here. So I'm going to show you this really quick. This is a lesson that I wrote for my students on integers. So I started with the sketch tool. So make a representation of 15 feet below sea level. Okay, so literally the student can do so many things, right? They can draw an arrow and write, you know, down 5, maybe they'll do that, down 15, or maybe they'll just write negative 15. Or I have some students that will take their time and draw water and then maybe a little fish, and then they'll maybe do that. Maybe that's what they'll do. Anyway, so the low floor, any student can click on this activity and start drawing something. There's your low floor. You're getting them in. They're drawing something. And then as they progress, it gets a little bit harder. And just so that you can see some of the different options, we go to these. I love doing things like this. So would the sum of P and R be greater than 0 or less than 0? Explain how you know. So once again, lots of right answers, lots of explanations, your low floor. I mean, it's a little tricky at first because they're having to, wait, what? P and R, what does that even mean? And they're gonna have to really think about where 0 is, but it just kind of opens it up. But the one I really wanted to show you, oh, right here. So order from the greatest value to the smallest value. So here's your low floor. So you're going here, I wanna have the biggest value at the top and the smallest value at the bottom. Okay, well, I know that 6 minus 5 is 1, so I'm gonna move that one down. Wait, 6 minus 5 is 1, but 5 minus 6 can also be 1. So strategically, I put those right by each other so they can see that those two are very, very different. That's a really big misunderstanding that math students have a lot. So hopefully they would say that that would go lower. And so anyway, you can create your own. Is basically what I wanted to show you with there. So that one right there is called the, well, I'll show you in a minute, but that also card sort. I'm sorry, I'm going all over the place. The card sort too. I love these card sorts. Now this is your high floor. Okay, so this is the same lesson that I've been showing you. It started as drawing a picture, and now it's ending like this. If a student were to first look at this, they would think, this is a bunch of gibberish. Is this even English, right? I mean, there's all these like variables everywhere, you know, but your higher learners that have just gone through that whole activity super fast will now look at this and be like, oh, now they're getting their challenge. So here's where your differentiation comes in. And this takes actually a lot of thought. So there's a lot of different activities if you wanted to custom, and if you wanted to create your own. Like I said, there's so many different options as far as what you can do within your lesson. So that would probably be a whole TST in itself. Anyway, I kind of went off on a tangent there. Are there other questions?
No, we are caught up with questions. You have a compliment. Leticia Rizzo wants you to know that she loves how passionate you are about math.
Thank you. Yeah, sometimes I can't hide it.
Okay, so I want to thank you, Rebecca. Thank you so much. I can see you already have a request for another training. Cesar Lopez said, can we have a training on how to create our own Desmos lessons? So I think we'll bring you back for that. That's a good idea. Thank you for sharing. There in front of everybody is a shared Desmos folder that she has created. And of course, there's her email with questions. This recording will be made available within 24 hours. Give me 24 hours to get it on to Mission Control along with her PowerPoint. But I want to thank everybody for coming today. If you loved what you saw, please share the word, and I hope to see everybody online either tomorrow. About an hour ago, I sent out the email for next week's offerings. So hope to see everybody next week. If not, have a great weekend. We'll talk soon. Thank you, Rebecca.
No problem.